Hey, what's up, everybody? USC fans. Oops, that's a. We're gonna put this up here. Sorry, this is Tunnel Vision. Doing this solo. Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com. Sorry, I'm trying to do this, run all this stuff myself. Just create this. What's going on here? So this is just gonna be on Facebook only. Normally we do. Obviously, there's three of us in the room. Normally we'll do Keely and Shotgun and myself. And we'll have Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. I'm just doing this on Facebook, but I do have your Facebook comments up there, so I should be able to do this. So like, we have someone saying hello. Nice. Hey, Derek, what's going on? So I'll be able to post your comments and stuff up here of what's going on during the show. So let's start. Big news. Last night on USC's conference call, Clay Helton conference call, we actually had a Tunnel Vision right after that. We all get to ask questions in the media. One of the questions I asked was, with the team being 4-4, would you make any changes, any significant changes? I didn't say specifically practice or coaches or whatever, just kind of left it up in the air. And he said he felt that they were close, very close. I think real close is what he said specifically. But they were going to prepare for Oregon State this week like normal. And then after the 4 games, to end the season, they would reevaluate everything like they always do. So from when I talked to them today, it didn't sound like any changes were imminent. But we get word, I'm recording the Podcast of Champions here in my studio, and I start getting a whole bunch of texts. My phone's blowing up. You see on Twitter that there were some big moves made. So what happened? Neil Callaway, longtime close personal family friend of Clay Helton, who never thought he would get rid of unless was forced to, is no longer the offensive line coach. So big news there. He is fired, relieved of his duties. T. Martin, the offensive coordinator, will remain offensive coordinator, remain the receivers coach. He will no longer be calling plays. So Clay Helton is going to take that over for him. So no more play calling for T. Martin. Neil Callaway is out. Tim Drevno, who a lot of people thought would eventually take over as the offensive line coach, he will do that. But he's also got all these other hats he's wearing. He's still going to be the running backs coach and the offensive line coach. Still the run game coordinator and pass protection coordinator. The graduate assistants, Clay Helton said, would be helping him out. So there's some big shakeup here. Now, just to keep in mind, every Monday, Clay Helton meets with athletic director Lynn Swan. So when I asked him last night, were there any big moves imminent? Maybe he didn't feel there was. And then when he has the meeting with Lynn Swan, he was nudged in that direction to do that. So we don't know at this point. We're going to be at practice on Tuesday. We'll be able to ask Clay Helton all those kind of questions, but big shakeup for USC. Now, the question is it too little, too late? A lot of people have just wrote him off and feel like he's going to be gone as a head coach anyway. But, I never thought he would make a move like this during the season. Certainly, he could have made a bigger move like this after last season, some sort of preemptive moves to feel like the coaching staff is getting better. But at this point, it sort of looks like it's a little bit of a desperation move. You only have 4 games left. You're going on a trip up to Oregon State, and you're down a coach now with Neil Callaway not being there. That's a lot for Tim Drevno to do. How much can he change? Can you change the culture of the way this offensive line is playing? I don't think so in a couple of days, but he's doing something. So for the fans out there that wanted something different to happen, and a lot of us in the media were saying that, this was the time. You needed to do something different, and he's doing it. So we'll see. But crazy kind of times going on at USC to go from last night, asked specifically, hey, any big things coming? And no. So you guys have already a whole bunch of comments and questions. I love it. So so I want to be able to answer anything you guys have of what's going on here. So there's a lot going on around this USC. So basically, how'd you get here? USC is 4-4 on the season and 3-3 in Pac-12 play. No longer controls its own destiny. No longer has the 19-game home winning streak. So all of that stuff is gone. So let me try to go through some of these questions and stuff here. So this is from Mark. What's the alternative? Do nothing? Yeah, I mean, that's not the alternative. That's really what a lot of us thought he was going to do because he's not been known to make kind of big changes. When's the last time he made any big changes? When he took over the job and they got embarrassed. He went from interim to the permanent head coach, and got beat pretty badly by Stanford up in the Pac-12 championship game. Made all those firings, got rid of pretty much the whole defensive staff, or almost all of it, outside of Johnny Nansen. And then they moved on and didn't do all that much as far as preparation goes for Wisconsin, but didn't look good in that Holiday Bowl either. So, but since then, he picked his guys, and that's where, and that's where they've been going. So it's this is something we haven't really seen from Clay Helton. Now, is it something that was forced upon him? We don't know, but it's pretty interesting. Let's see. We got here's Jan. UCLA's getting better weekly under Chip Kelly. No, I agree with you. I think that's something that you have to keep up with the Joneses and not just UCLA, who, yes, they've not had a great year, but I feel like they're changing the culture. Chip Kelly's an alpha coach, and you could argue he's going to do well or not, but I think he's going to do pretty well there. But they're on the rise, and look at the Rams. You have the World Series here 2 years in a row. Kings and Angels and Dodgers, everything that's going on. Lakers got LeBron James. You have to keep up for eyeballs in Los Angeles, and not the way things were going. USC's been irrelevant on the college football landscape, and that's not good. You saw the 47,000 plus in the seats for Saturday's games against Arizona State. That just can't go over well. You're doing the renovations. There's a lot of money people are asking. They're asking for a lot of money for season tickets, for the renovations, all that kind of stuff. You need to put a better product on the field. It's just not been a very good product to watch. Here's one from Michael. Sorry, it's hard to go back and scroll through things because I'm trying to talk and read these things. So I'm pretty much going to say whatever the latest things that came up there. Michael, the season's almost done. Why now? Yeah, it would have been better earlier. I think there's been some bad decisions made by Clay Helton. And I think if you look at, people say, well, there's an excuse that you have a freshman quarterback. Well, you do. You had 3 quarterbacks that basically hadn't played at all. 2 of them that certainly haven't played at all. And Matt Fink, who got some mop-up duty coming into the season. And you had a quarterback coach to hire because Tyson Helton left for Tennessee. And you hire a rookie quarterback coach. So I'm not going to say, hey, the excuse of having a freshman quarterback, I'm not going to take that when you hired the hire you could have made at a quarterback coach is you could have got someone with experience. You got an inexperienced quarterback coach to go along with all your inexperienced quarterbacks. So I don't think you can use that kind of thing as an excuse. They needed to make a change with Neil Callaway. He just wasn't relating to players. And there's way too many guys on this staff who don't recruit. So it's really imbalanced. I know T. Martin gets a lot of flack from people. He's no longer to be calling the plays. But, man, he shoulders a lot of this. I mean, I think that there's been great development of the wide receivers. As far as recruiting goes, he's the best that they have on the staff and carries way more than his own weight. So there's a lot of imbalances on this staff, and I think you needed to make changes. But the changes probably needed to be made at the beginning of the season and not now. You have 8 games under Neil Callaway, and it just wasn't working. They just didn't block well. It was bad, and things weren't happening to change it every week. So it's it's a little too, like I said before, is it too little too late? It probably is. But if they go on a run and they win their last 4 games, I think Clay Helton will stick around, and then he'll modify the staff some. I'm just thinking at this point, are you rearranging the deck chairs on a Titanic? And he's going to be fired at the end of the season anyway. A lot of it's going to depend, I feel, on what's going on here in the next 4 weeks of how they perform. Because you have to remember, there is a lack of leadership at USC. There is not a president. There's an interim president in place. The ultimate decision maker isn't there for USC. Lynn Swann, another, you hire a rookie athletic director. So he's never had to do this before. There's all new experiences for everybody. So I think there's a power void at USC. And ideally, they wouldn't want to make some kind of firing right now. But that's the way it's going. This is a move that, is it too little too late? Probably. But, we'll see how everything plays out. Here's Albert. Can they get rid of T. Martin? Well, he could have. He just fired Neil Callaway. But if you get rid of T. Martin, that's your best recruiter. Now, by demoting him, you're essentially getting rid of him. He's not going to stick around next year as the non-offensive coordinator for what could potentially be a lame duck coaching staff if the coaching staff stays in place. But he's your best recruiter. There's a couple guys on the staff that are really good. I think he does a really good job. He develops wide receivers. So I mean, what are you going to do getting rid of T. Martin? Like, what would you want T. Martin gone for? He's not calling the plays anymore. It's not like he designed this offense. I don't know why you would want him fired as opposed to what Helton did. So here's okay. I'm just going to put this up there because I tweeted out earlier. I'm tired of I'm not ready for all the horrible coaching ideas. And there's a lot of really, really terrible ones out there. Here's one of them, Chris Richard. No, here's what you want. Just keep it really simple. Hire a head coach that other major college programs would want to hire as a head coach. Not someone because he used to be at USC or he knows Pete Carroll or anyone knows the fight song. Just get all those things, get out of your head. No Jack Del Rio. Hire someone who's been an experienced, successful college head coach. Priority number one. That's it. Is Chris Richard that? No. Then number two is hire someone who does not know the USC fight song. Keep those two things in mind. I don't ever want to hear a suggestion from anyone unless those two criteria are met. There's only two. So someone that's been good in college, a good college coach, either now or was before, and he doesn't have ties to USC. So forget that. Oh, Jack Del Rio, Jeff Fisher, stop that. Don't find any more former players. No, that doesn't work. They've done that for the last 3 athletic directors. All the head coaches, stop doing it. No more retreads, none of that stuff. Go to get Jeff Brom, who's a great head coach, who has no ties to USC, and he's proved himself in college. Someone like that is fine. If you want to make thousands of suggestions like that, it's fine. No more suggestions that are people that used to play at USC or coach at USC and have never coached in college. No more. The time for that is over. Is that my rant is over on that one? Let's see what we got. Call me when he finds. There's so many. So here's some. These would work. Okay, I'm not going to say these are good or bad. PJ Fleck, Jeff Brom, Justin Fuentes, all that's fine. To my knowledge, they don't know the fight song, and they've been successful in college. I like all that kind of stuff. It's great. So those are good suggestions. Bad suggestions are, who's this guy here? This is bad suggestion. John, no. Why do you want those guys? Jeff Fisher, because they played at USC. So what? No, those are not good suggestions. Any other questions kind of on, here's some interesting. From Mike. So I think going the coordinator route is, you could sell me on it. The problem is USC went the coordinator route. Clay Helton, as nice of a guy he is, wasn't really all that successful of a coordinator, and he wasn't learning under successful head coaches. So it's not like Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin were crushing it. If you want to get an assistant, I get it. Nick Saban assistant, Dabo Swinney assistant, Urban Meyer, that's okay. But I think USC's kind of past that point where they can go on and get an assistant now. Now, maybe when you're talking about Clemson, someone that's been rattled around for, and why am I blanking on his name? The defensive coordinator there. So someone put that in the comments. Something like that. A lot of people wanted him as a head coach. Tom Herman, when he was coming out, people wanted him as a head coach. That kind of stuff I get, but has to be the uber successful assistant at an uber successful program, not mediocre assistant under mediocre head coaches. Why would you hire someone like that? Brent Venables is what I'm saying. So here, yeah. So Scott, thank you. Brent Venables, who's a coordinator that any college head coaching job comes up open, that's someone that you would look at. So, yes, that was the one. They need to be developed. It doesn't happen. So Tina, I think you're talking about the offensive linemen being developed. And I think that's part of the problem with USC. We've seen wide receivers come in as 5 stars and 4 stars and leave and go to the NFL, and they've done well. We've seen offensive linemen come in as 4 or 5 stars and really do nothing. And I think player development is a big part of it. I think recruiting is important at USC, but I don't go to say that USC recruits itself. but USC has all these inherent advantages where you can bring in prospects fairly easily. So I think that's something that works well. You get these guys in, and they want to come to USC. A lot of them do. So a lot of it about recruiting at USC is evaluation, where you have a lot of guys that want to come, but you have to figure out which ones would be best fit for you and which ones you can, and then also develop them and bring them in to be NFL players. We've seen a wide discrepancy of guys not getting developed at certain positions and getting developed in others. On the offensive line, there's 15 guys on scholarship. There's plenty of athletic bodies there. The fact that this is not a good offensive line is baffling to me. So this move, if you didn't make it beginning of the season, after the first couple games, 3 games, they should have done it. I think this is too late after game 8, but let's go to Irvin. What is that, Ryan? What is this positive impact? I'm sorry. Does this have a positive impact on recruiting with Neil Callaway gone? Well, turmoil is turmoil around the program. Specifically for him as a recruiter, he didn't relate all that well to a bunch of guys. But to be fair, Clay Helton, people say, Clay Helton did recruit linemen pretty heavily, but it wasn't always the position coaches that were getting certain, players in. Sometimes it was you were relying on the really good staff members who could recruit to recruit all the positions and not just the position coaches. But, impact, I think right now the most important thing is it's not that USC doesn't have the offensive line coach anymore. I think Tim Drebno could come in and talk to some kids that, maybe were on the fence or turned USC down or whatever it was. I think that's possible. But really the bigger factor is just what's the future of the overall coaching staff. So this is like a little shakeup. Does it really, they're going to get 3 commits tomorrow on the offensive line? No, I don't think anything like that. But I think you're seeing, some steps, but there could be bigger steps taken at the end of the season. Now, my belief is that without a president, Lynn Swann would rather not make a move if he didn't have to. I don't think he's a huge Clay Helton fan, but I think he would rather not have to do it, be forced into doing it. So he might be forced into doing it, and then there could be some, ramifications there of like who they would be able to hire and all that kind of stuff. But this is, when you hire someone that's never done a job before, you hire Clay Helton, he's never been a head coach. You hire Lynn Swann, he's never been an athletic director. There's a lot of weird stuff that can happen, and we're seeing it already at USC. So I think we're getting a lot of bad suggestions. I can't see Clay Helton. So can't see Clay Helton staying. Clay Helton would love to stay. It's about what Lynn Swann is going to do, and we just don't know at this point. Does he want to wait until there's a permanent president in place? Like you have a lot more, if you get the sign off of a president, if you hire someone without that, can he even do it? He's more of like the CEO there. So I think that's why when you went out and get, I looked at all the athletic directors in the conference. Only Arizona State didn't have a previous athletic director hired as their athletic director. He was a VP in the NFL with the Atlanta Falcons and was former agent and all that kind of stuff, but really tied into the sports world. Lynn Swann, they plucked him out of obscurity. Like the only thing that Lynn Swann's bringing to the table, he's got a different background stuff, but nothing in college administration, as he played football at USC. He knows football. So that's just a weird hire. And, we don't know. That makes this whole thing an X factor that, yes, you could potentially get rid of Clay Helton, but who are you going to end up bringing in? Let's see. Let's look out. What else we got? Manuel, okay, our play calling sucked all year. Helton knows this. He's part of it. Yeah, so the play, I don't think it's specifically just, only play calling. I thought they called plays really nicely for the most part when Matt Fink was in and when Jack Sears was in, except for that option pitch was really awful. Like that, I don't know what, if you want to run the option, you got to run it like every day in practice. We never saw that thing run. And the fact that you get a turnover on that is pretty crazy. But it's more about the play design and where does the playbook come from. And I think looking at this, it just seems like it's some kind of gumbo offensive is what you call it, but creation from what was left over with Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. And neither one of those guys, they weren't like, learning the spread under Hal Mummy or anybody like a guru like that. It was kind of like this was the offense everyone's running, and they were kind of making their oing stuff up and do it. Like they weren't really these gurus of the spread offense, and that's where Clay Helton got all this stuff from. You needed, if you want to have a great offense, you get someone who's a guru at it, and that's where you kind of learn from. And none of those guys really learned from that. So I'm just not sure where this came from. It doesn't look like some genius came up with this offense. And so I'm not going to say, oh, it's play calling or this, but just the actual creation of the offense. If you're Clay Helton and somehow you keep the job, the first thing I think you go out and you hire a guru offensive coordinator that brings his own system and does his own thing. And I think you get someone that's learned from some of the pillars of college football, then you have a chance for success, because you have the athletes here, but you need a great plan. I just haven't seen a great plan. I'm not going to say it's the play calling is T's problem. To me, it's more about the offensive design. All right, I haven't read this one yet, but I'm going to put it up here. Adrian, Helton has led USC to back-to-back 10-win seasons, a Pac-12 title, which hadn't been done in a decade, and a Rose Bowl victory. There have been inconsistencies, yes, but Helton should be given his chance. I think after next season, we don't go back to the Pac-12 title game. He should go. T should never have been the OC to begin with. So, Adrian, you are a dying breed. We call you, there's two classifications of fans on the Peristyle message board. There's the Sunshine Pumpers and the Doom and Gloomers. Sunshine Pumpers, everything's great. Doom and Gloomers is everyone's awful, just kind of in a nutshell. Most of the Adrians right now are gone. So the Sunshine Pumpers who were saying exactly what Adrian was saying, hey, he won the Rose Bowl, he won Pac-12 title, 10 games, 2 years in a row. That's what they look at. But then but Adrian, you did see USC go to Stanford and score 3 points, right? And you did see giving up 34 straight points to Texas. In Utah. I mean, there's some bad things. If you watch the games, there's some bad things going on. Yes, Clay Helton has had some success. Are you going to say it's all because of Sam Darnold? I'm not going to say it's all because of Sam Darnold, but I think a lot of it was because of Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold's gone. And the eye test that we're putting out there, and I know how talented this team is. I mean, you look at the talent index from 24/7, looking at the players that are still on the team, they're up there. They're number 4 in the country behind Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. All like stud coaches. They have stud talent and stud coaches, and they're successful. USC has stud talent. They don't have stud coaches, and they aren't successful. So, Adrian, to me, if I'm Lynn Swann, and I like Clay Helton as much as anybody has ever covered, I see enough right now that this team isn't close. They're not going in the right direction. He's trying to make a move now, but I kind of feel it's too little too late. So if I'm Lynn Swann, I think he's completely justified in making a move and getting rid of Clay Helton. And at the time, I think you did need someone like Clay Helton because of the other bad hires that USC had made. So bad hires Lane Kiffin, bad hires Steve Sarkisian. Then it puts you in a hole. And with all the crazy turmoil that was going on, they did need an adult in the room. And Clay Helton was that. And you brought him in, if it ends up being just like a stopgap where he kind of brings some stability back to the program and has some really good success with the Rose Bowl and the Pac-12 championship, that's great, And I don't think there'd be any hard feelings moving on. Clay Helton had an amazing opportunity here. I think if he would have hired better, he could have been around a lot longer. But it seems like they were safe hires people that were close to him, that people that he knew, as opposed to going out and making splashier hires that would be threats. Certainly, there's no one really on the staff that could take over for him. There's no head coaches on the staff. So what does that tell you? There's no one on the staff right now that could be a head coach. So there's no threats on the staff, but that's sort of like, that's not a way to keep in power. You got to hire people around you that are successful. Dylan McCullough was an amazing hire for Clay Helton. He didn't know the fight song. He came from obscurity in Indiana, where he was a really good running back coach. So what did you look at? His resume. He was a great running back coach at Indiana. He recruited the position well. He came in and did an amazing job for Ronald Jones last year, and that group ended up getting an opportunity in the NFL and left. But you didn't go back and repeat that. You just kind of that was a blueprint for success for Clay Helton, and he hasn't followed that when it comes to hirings. promotions from within, hiring more Western Kentucky, all that stuff. That's not good enough. So you can't pile too many of those. You can do one or two of those, but he piled too many of those up. So now 8 games in, you're getting rid of Neil Callaway. I just think that's not going to be enough. So Adrian, I see what you're saying. It's great, but there's not as many of you around anymore. There was a bunch of you before, but now they see what's on the field, and a lot of people just don't feel that way. So Gerald, here's the problem: this is a really talented team. You can't look at excuses and say, oh, yeah, they had a freshman quarterback and blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, it's a stacked roster. You look at the stars that have come in, and the anomaly is USC, because the teams that USC's up there with, as far as the same metrics and the players they have on their team, are Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. What are all those teams doing? Like winning lots of games. USC isn't winning lots of games. So USC is the anomaly. Sorry, it's been a long kind of day. I got the sun setting over here and stuff. I know the lighting might be a little bit weird. So I haven't read this, but let's just throw it up there. Can Clay be successful if other coaches see him as on his way out? What good coach would come here to assist if they see him as temporary? So, okay, so that's a good point, Rick. A lot of this depends on how USC finishes off the season. Will USC finish off good enough that Clay Helton stays? Then, if that's the case, how many changes does he make? Is this it? Does he go out and do anything else? Like, basically, he would have to get a running back coach right now. I would think someone like T. Martin would leave. Would he go out and hire a new offensive coordinator? I think there's a big enough draw at USC that if you're an offensive coordinator, some guru somewhere, and you have a chance to come in and be successful at USC, you're an alpha guy, you feel like you can go in and do it. You're not like, well, the staff's probably not going to be around any longer. If it's a great opportunity and you feel you can go in and kill it, I think in most situations that's not going to be a factor. But, if he's going to fire everybody and everyone looks at this as his last year, I mean, I think there could be some problems there. But if it's just a few spots and you want to try to go bring in an offensive coordinator just find some offense in the country that's just kicking ass, and you want to bring that dude in, I mean, I think there's some opportunities there. And who knows? That could be someone that feels like they could take over the job if Clay Helton is fired after a year. So I see what you're saying, but I still think it's USC. And Dylan McCullough jumped at the opportunity to come to USC. Now, it wasn't, it didn't look like the coach was going to be leaving anytime soon, but he knew he was recruiting well at Indiana. And I talked to him about this. Not in this room, but the other room when he came in to do my podcast. I mean, he would try to get guys that LSU wanted and to try to convince them, and it took a lot. When he came to USC, he didn't have to convince them. Like, hey, I want you to come to USC. It's a lot easier. So there's some advantages to it still, even though if you have like a quote-unquote dead man walking coach. Let's see. Nick says, the freshman QB argument doesn't work because it was Helton who made him the starter. I don't know what they saw in practice, but this dude was not ready. I don't agree with you on that, Nick. I think we watched all the practices, and I thought JT Daniels looked the best coming in without spring football. But I felt like Jack Sears was up there and closer to him than Matt Fink was. And they put, Jack Sears as the number 3 guy. And some of that has to do with, what was going on in the meeting rooms and classrooms and things like that. That was going to take over. So what can you control? You can control who you hire as your quarterback coach. And I like Brian Ellis. I mean, he might be the best quarterback coach in the country for all I know, but Clay Helton couldn't know that because he's never done it before. So I think you have to just say, yeah, maybe he's great and I know him and I'm familiar with him, but we're going to have an inexperienced quarterback. I need to go get a proven commodity for sure. Keep Brian Ellis on staff, groom him up and let him be it. But it's too early for him to take over that spot because you're going to throw some quarterback out to the wolves. And so for different reasons than you, Nick, I don't buy the freshman quarterback excuse, especially because we're seeing freshmen all over the country. It's a different game now. Freshmen come in and play. And if you don't come in and play, they transfer out. So you got to be able to play as a freshman. So that's on you as a coaching staff to get those guys ready. So Irvin, watch more film and football. Yeah, so there's a little joke about they were watching film harder and things like that. So to me, it's more about, what you're doing on the practice field. And let me pull that up here. There was one, where was it? Practice. What about those JT throws into triple coverage from Daryl? Okay, yeah, JT did. He is a true freshman. He hasn't made a lot of perfect throws. He's made a bunch of really good throws, but he's made some mistakes too. I think that's expected. That's not an excuse to why you're 4-4. They've had 3 different quarterbacks play this year, and not all of them played pretty well. Like when Fink came in, I thought they ran the offense pretty well, and Jack Sears did a nice job Saturday. So it's not JT Daniels' fault. To me, it's more about that. Let's see. DS Asado. Good thing Pittman can create plays. No, this is a good point. And this is the problem with what I see from this USC offense. It's more about individuals making great plays. And Michael Pittman making a great play. Tyler Vaughn's, it's a nice play design where the pitch it back, but you have your wide receiver that needs to throw a perfect strike and a wide receiver to make a great catch to make that play work. It wasn't like it worked where the guy was wide open. That was not the case. Usually you got to play like that. You want a dude wide open. Michael Pittman wasn't wide open. It was an amazing individual play by Tyler Vaughn's and Michael Pittman. And we've just seen too many of those things where it's individuals making things work. When, I've been harping on USC special teams for a long time. And a lot of, John Baxter, special teams coordinator, someone I've been very critical of. And then people are like, well, look, Adoree Jackson did his, he ran that back for a touchdown. To me, that was more about an individual making a ridiculous play. And USC seemed to rely on that quite a bit. They rely on that 5-star talent. They rely on those people to go out and make those plays. And in college, you want to be able to see just plays work and schemes confuse a defense. We've seen that. I think of the Arizona game, Khalil Tate's first touchdown pass against Oregon, there was a dude, 30 yards wide open. Now, there's some kind of coverage breakdown by Oregon, but you got to design plays where it's easier for your quarterback. And what we're seeing when JT Daniels is these are pretty amazing plays by a bunch of 5-star guys, but it's not necessarily by the scheme. And I think you need the scheme to help out your 5-star players, not just relying on your 5-star players to make plays all the time. So let's see. Rick. Are we going to lose Sears if they stay with JT the rest of the year? So we asked Clay Helton about this last night. JT is the starter when he comes back. Now, I don't think you're going to lose Jack Sears. If you would have lost him, you would have lost him when he was named the 3rd-string quarterback. If anything, he might have moved his way up to the 2nd-string quarterback because you could see what he could do on the field because he's got some experience. So, no, I don't think there's any sort of risk of losing Jack Sears now because you didn't lose him when he was named the 3rd-string quarterback, and he hasn't really had a significant practice rep since the 3rd week of fall camp. But he got his opportunity with really 1 week to prepare, and it wasn't even that. They didn't, practice as long as they normally do during that week. And he went in there and played pretty well. So, no, I think that probably gives him more confidence than anything. But, he would like to be out there and be the starter. But JT, Clay Helton made it clear he's the guy. So, here's from Marty. I know people harp on this a lot, but wish we would have kept Ed Orgeron instead of just dumping him, making the wrong choice. Look what we've done with LSU. Sad and embarrassing to lose to a team like AZU, Arizona State, last Saturday. Yeah, so that's one of the things. I always harp on what Pat Hayden did at USC. Look at his top 5 or 6 major decisions for Pat Hayden. Do the exact opposite, and the program would be in a much better spot. And one of them, at the time, Ed Orgeron, I think you should have kept him. And a lot of people are like, oh, no, he's not the head coach. It would have been no worse than, obviously a lot better than what you did with Steve Sarkisian. You bring in Steve Sarkisian, not only does he flame out in 15 games or whatever it was, 16 games, but you opened up the door for Washington to get Chris Peterson. You made it was a double bad mistake. And we've seen, I think Ed Orgeron changed as a head coach. He's doing a really good job at LSU, beat 3 top 10 teams this year. So Pat Hayden had a choice between 2 interim coaches, and he picked the wrong one, So you fired the one you should have hired, and you hired the one you shouldn't have retained. So those are that's the higher up decision making process. When they make these decisions and we criticize them this is a bad decision, you don't necessarily see it, but then now later on you say, yeah, that really was a bad decision. So yeah, I love Ed Orgeron. That's obviously that's water under the bridge and stuff now, but that's one of those things where you've created this huge problem by not hiring him because you took Sark away, which you shouldn't have hired Sark anyway, and you left a void at a powerful program who they were thinking about getting rid of Sark anyway at some point, and allows Chris Peterson to come in there. And then who's to say Sark leaves after a year or two and they get Chris Peterson anyway, but you basically set up Washington for, for the next 15 years because you took Sark away, took off their hands. This is kind of interesting from Dennis. It feels a little like Clay uses the first few games like preseason. Unfortunately, this year, the preseason turned into the whole season. Now, I think that's a good point. I don't feel like there's some good weeks of preparation in fall camp, getting ready for the season, but it seems like Clay Helton uses games as a way to kind of get better, as opposed to the week of practice in between games to get better. The only time they're really hitting and tackling and being physical is on Saturdays, and I think that's a philosophy. It doesn't seem to be a philosophy that's working all that well, and you can't. It's more of like an NFL philosophy. Like you said, every week is a battle you have to get through. No, you're USC. Like every week shouldn't be a battle. There should be like 6 games. You just destroy people. There'll be some, you have a clunker in there that hopefully you're talented enough to win. And then, some really good games and some of the other ones. But USC's been in every one of these is like a clunker that you could lose or win. And that shouldn't be the case. There's too big of a talent discrepancy for that to happen. So that can happen once or twice. We've seen that happen with Pete Carroll and other stuff. But it also goes along with just thumping some people that you should thump. And, to Clay Helton's credit, he's won a lot of those games that you should win. They haven't lost a lot, but when they're an underdog, they don't win. When they're favored, which is most of the time, they typically win. And, sometimes on the road or whatever they don't. But they've been really good at home. You lose that, as a favorite. There's problems here. And I feel like what you're saying is kind of true. The preparation had to change. You have to do something different. You have to practice harder during the week to get these guys ready for the games. It can't be that the first few games are some sort of preseason and then you're ready. Because, the preseason, like you said in the question, it's been going on too long. All right. I don't know if we're getting any more. It doesn't look like. Here, let me get some more comments here. It doesn't. I don't know if the questions are. Okay, here we go. Wow, we're good. Okay, there. Let's see. We got. Yeah, stop with that, dear. Here's someone, Tim. I'll probably end it out after this one. USC pays for coaches. Helton is the first cheap buy they've made in almost 2 decades. I think as far as we don't know for Clay Helton, obviously that was cheap. You just hire your interim coach. It's a cheap buy. The assistant coaches, though, did Clay Helton want to go out and get huge name assistant coaches? I don't think so. And they have the administration say no. I don't think that was the case. I think Clay Helton hired who he wanted to hire. It wasn't like there was a case of him being limited. The problem is you don't have a president of the university right now. Like if Nick Saban, whatever, obviously it's not going to happen. Nick Saban said, for $8 million, I'll come to USC. Well, can Lynn Swann approve that? You don't even have a president in place. I don't think you could even get something like that done if you wanted to. So there's just not a lot of coaches out there that are, have national championships. A guy like Bob Stoops, he's got a national championship. There's just not a lot of those dudes available. If Stoops needed $5 million, could USC do it right now? I don't know. I'm not sure. We just don't know because of the void of, a president, the power vacuum that exists up there. But I think USC could pay, and I think Clay Helton could have hired some higher name assistant coaches. I don't feel like that was a handcuff on him from the administration. So it's really, to me, it was more about he was hiring people that he felt really comfortable with. But if you get rid of him, what is the bank? What is it going to be? What kind of budget is Lynn Swann going to have? We just don't know. I think it's hard to even say anything that would be huge because there's a lack of a president right now. Robert. Hey, Robert, what's up? Do you get the feeling that Clay Helton is afraid to hire his replacement? Well, I feel like that was the case when he hired everybody. Now, I don't think it matters. Now you're like, where are you? But yeah, I feel like at the time, he didn't hire anyone. You're a rookie head coach, and you hire a rookie offensive coordinator. That doesn't make any sense to me. That was basically just keeping everything the same. You have to go out and get someone with experience. I love what Justin Wilcox did. He's a rookie head coach. He was a young guy. A lot of people were questioning that. It was a weird kind of call for Cal to do that. But he went out and got head coaches as his coordinators. So that's a different story. And we haven't seen Clay Helton do that. So, Robert, I think that was the case then. I'm not sure about now. But yeah, I think now it's probably too little too late for him. I don't think he's going to not hire someone. Now he's going to try to hire someone that's going to save his job. So I don't think he's worried about hiring someone that would take over for him. If he can't do that, then let's see. Adrian, Stoops is staying in Oklahoma. I live in Oklahoma, and they treat him like a god here. He wouldn't go back to coach if you offered him $10 million a year. Yeah, I've heard some of that stuff too. But just a name like that out there because he's currently not have a job and he's won a national championship before. Let's see. Robert, given the weakness of the offensive line, having Jack Sears with the ability to roll out and scramble, do you feel like Clay Helton? Sorry. It's scrolling fast. You guys got a lot of things. Do you feel like Clay Helton should consider using Jack Sears over the next couple of games versus Daniels? Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I would like them to use, I like JT Daniels, but I would like them to give him a more simplified playbook that Matt Fink and Jack Sears have had. My feeling, and it's just the gut feeling I get from watching it, is when JT Daniels is out there, it's like, let him do what he can do. Go out and just win it like Sam Darnold would go out and win it. Where when you see Matt Fink come in and Jack Sears come in, they've limited the playbook. They've tried to give him plays to help him succeed. I don't know why you're not doing that for JT Daniels. I mean, they said they've limited the playbook. They've simplified things to make it simpler and more easier to understand and give him a better chance of success. They don't do that with JT Daniels. So I would love to see JT Daniels back out there, but with calling plays that would just kind of help him. Like let him run some screens and dump it off to the tight end to get some nice yards. We saw these really cool play designs that we never saw with JT Daniels, and I don't know why that is, unless because they feel like he's got this arm that they can save the team, and they were just rolling him out there to do that, which I don't think is fair to him. So I think as a college coach, you have to put your players, young, old, whatever, in a place that they can succeed. I think they did a pretty good job of that with Sears and Fink, and just not so much with JT Daniels. So here's my boy, DS. Hufunga is a beast. Yeah, reminds me of the next Palomalo, Hawaiian Power. DS, he was one of my favorite dudes to cover. He's gonna be doing this someday. He's communications. He's out there balling, and for him to break his collarbone on that Manny Wilkins fake inside, and then he took it off outside and ran and scored a 45-yard touchdown. Really unfortunate to see, and obviously USC's in a tough spot as far as the safety position goes. But man, love that kid. He does ball, and I think huge loss for the USC defense. So he's a true freshman. He'll bounce back and come back, but he's an absolute stud. So I think someone that you really like to see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think we're gonna end this stuff. There's more bad ideas out there. Some good ideas too. Like James Franklin's really interesting at Penn State. He's been kind of up and down. We got a bunch of Dave Arandas. We have a high school coach. No, no high school coaches. Sorry about that. Coach K. Yeah, he's good, right? This isn't basketball. But yeah, all right, let's see. I think we're going to end this. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this little solo one. I just really thought we needed to do something because there was some big breaking news. Regular Tunnel Vision will be back on Thursday. Today's Monday. Tuesday, we will have our podcast with Dan Weber. So Keely will be in studio. We'll do that. Probably a lot of talk about this as well. But I was already in studio recording a podcast, and I felt like, heck, we got to do something. Oh, here's one. John, Ryan's coach. No, I don't know enough football to be the coach. I could be an athletic director, though. You want me to be the athletic director? I'll come in and I'll change everything. Just everything. It would be great. So let me come in there. I'll do that. So write your congressman, call USC, tell them You want me as the athletic director, but no, that's just good. But thank you for all the questions and everything. Some really good comments. We had a lot of people on the show, so that's great. So a lot of people watching. We'll be back with our regular stuff. Normally, like I said, we do Facebook, we do YouTube, and we do Periscope. This was just a Facebook one today because I was by myself. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been Tunnel Vision. Normally Thursdays at noon, Sundays at 7 p.m. after Clay Helton's conference call. But thanks for listening. Thanks for all the questions and everything. And